Let's be real. Starting, running, and scaling a coaching business can feel exhausting. I mean, you've got the marketing, the hustling, the selling, all that stuff you didn't realize you would need to master when you decided to start a coaching business. For anything like me, you started your coaching business to change the world, to improve the lives of others while improving your own. Well, the truth is, running a business doesn't have to be as hard as many of us have made it out to seem. And you don't even have to do all that hustling stuff if you don't want to. You really can get into flow, into your zone of genius, and get back to the work you were sent here to do. But you have to ask for help. You have to be willing to work in new ways. You have to be willing to open up your mind to mentors who might be doing it differently than you've ever considered. And you have to be willing to actually implement new ways of thinking and running your business. If you're up for that, stay tuned. I'm Hannah Hermanson, your certified coach, international speaker, author, and yes, the founder of Dream Life is Real Life and the host of this show. And I've been able to help hundreds of coaches build, scale, and enjoy their online businesses. Essentially, make their dream life their real life. And if you'd like help improving your business life and get your coaching business to the next level, we might be able to help you. Head on over to dreamlifeisreallife.com/show to get all the resources and episodes that we talk about in this community. You can join our Facebook community, you can find me on Instagram, but more importantly, if you're really ready to integrate what you learn here today and on other episodes, then you'll be able to set up a complimentary 10-minute chat with my team. Again, at dreamlifeisreallife.com/show, no strings attached. We love getting to know you and seeing what are the right next moves for you. But now let's get on to the show. In this podcast, you'll find the real people, concrete tactics, and weekly motivation and inspiration to make your dream life and business real. I started this podcast to bring you the role models that I never had. We talk to successful entrepreneurs, freedom seekers, business owners, and people living life on their own terms. To be a true leader, to create the legacy you desire, and to live in alignment, you need a tribe lifting you up. And I've made it my mission to be your tribe, to bring them to your ears at least, because after all, we are all in this together. Now, let's cue the music. Welcome back, friends. I am so excited. This has been a little bit in the making. We were just talking how this conversation has been one we've both been eager to schedule, and today is the day that we are hanging out with Lisane Basquiat. She is the founder of Shaping Freedom, which is a personal growth company that trains individuals on how to grow and gain empowerment through internal congruence and spiritual alignment. And this helps them create healthier family dynamics and legacies. She also owns Hera Club in Carlsbad, which is a female-focused and gender-inclusive community, co-working space, and business accelerator. I am so excited. We're finally here.
I am too. Thank you so much for having me on, Hannah.
Yeah. So I think we got connected originally kind of a byway through Hera Club. It's something I've heard a lot about from my San Diego, located friends. And I've come to learn
Hera Hub.
Hera Hub.
Hera
Thank
Hub.
you.
Yeah.
I should remember that. The HH alliteration is totally I'm about it.
It's all good.
And I've learned that you've obviously built other businesses and had lots of other experiences. So I'd love to get the soundbite of your background and what really brought you to entrepreneurship to begin with.
Oh, great. So I worked in corporate for a long time. And what I did was I did something that's called business transformation. And so what that looks like is leading large scale projects that were focused on driving efficiency and better effectiveness into operations or lines of business. I did that coupled with an organizational change management strategy because that's the way that you get people to actually adopt the different changes that you're making to the way that people work and to their processes. And I got certified as a coach um, several years before I actually transitioned out of corporate America. And so what I found was that while I really enjoyed the work that I was doing, I worked within the financial services industry. There was always a lot going on, which is good for me personally. What I found was that I was sitting in my office doing all the things that on paper checked off the boxes. I was successful. I, drove a nice car. I had a nice home. I was married. I had two children. All those kind of things that happen in life or that deem success. But I was doing so kind of looking out the window the entire time because there is and was at the time this person within me who saw things differently than how they looked on paper or how they seemed. And that always intrigued me. Kind of the deeper story beneath things is something that always intrigued and drove me.
Yeah.
I
can
and
so relate. And even I'm picturing myself in that phase of my life, and I'm recalling so many people I've talked to who report the same: staring out the window or counting the minutes until lunch and then counting the minutes until 5 o'clock. And I was the same way. I remember checking the boxes of like, okay, I have my Toyota Corolla in a parking spot. I have my retirement and my 401k that everyone has been harping on me about, since I graduated high school. And then realizing that felt very empty. And I think you and I both have what Tony Robbins calls that sleeping giant inside of us that isn't willing to just be ignored and like sit in an empty space.
Exactly.
And so I'm curious if your coaching, when you did that, you said it was more like in your professional world, but did that start to stir up that sleeping giant for you? Do you remember that certification process?
Yeah. So the process for me, and that's a great question, Hannah. The process for me was, so I was kind of focused on that corporate role. And at that point, my journey or my goals were around, the next level, get to the next level, get a promotion, get a bigger bonus, that kind of thing. And then I decided at some point to become a coach because I had finally found a career that, like, a name for this thing that I really wanted to do, and I was 11. I always wanted to be a social worker and a teacher. Not understanding that social work was very different from how I envisioned it. But I had, during a leadership retreat, got introduced to this coach. And I saw this woman do her thing. And I saw this woman transform the room. And I thought, oh, shoot, that's what I want to do. Like that, whatever that is, that's what I want to do. And so years later, I decided to become certified as a coach. And I was sitting at my desk one day in my office. And at the time, I was working virtually. I managed a pretty large team that was a few states away. And I was on this call with all these folks. And I had this nagging feeling all day. And it was just like something was coming up for me throughout that, this day that I was having. And quite frankly, it was kind of very similar to today, where I was like, doing all the things, juggling all the things, back-to-back meetings. And I was also chatting with a couple of team members during this call that I was on with my former supervisor, my former boss. And I had this nagging feeling. And then in this moment of aha, during which this senior leader was talking about something and I was chatting with a couple of people, it occurred to me that I had this nagging feeling. There was something going on inside of me that really wanted to be heard. And that had that been a friend of mine or a family member or someone calling me to say, hey, Lisane, even in the middle of your day, I'm about to jump off the cliff. I need your help. I would have dropped everything and I would have found a way to attend to that person. And what I realized in that moment is that I had created a relationship with myself, or allowed my relationship with myself to get to the point where I would just ignore myself and push that away. And it was almost like an indifference. Like, yeah, I know you're feeling that way, but you know what? We don't have time right now. We have these things that we have to do,
Other
these
people
boxes that we have to check,
Yeah.
other people's things.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of that moment for me that brought coaching and what it was really about for me and what I wanted to do for and with other people to the forefront for me. And it was that moment when I really recognized that, hey, there's something here that's bigger than what's going on right now, and what's happening for me at the time. What was happening for me in my relationship with myself was something that is really at the core of so many of the problems and struggles that human beings face on a day-to-day basis.
So
just change the trajectory of my entire career.
Right. And this is where I think that sleeping giant is waking up and you're starting to realize your woo-woo, like we were talking about. And I think it's really, the reason why I started this podcast and a lot of what I do is to show that role model, that woman that you saw in the room as a life coach. Like, that was not on the 40 options of majors when I was in college to be when you grow up. And for me, that role model was a yoga teacher. And I was like, you just create this experience. It woke something up in me. And then I couldn't just go back to the cubicle and be the same person. It was like, I knew this woo-woo, it wasn't just, frustration. There was like something bigger. So I'd love to dissect or move into how you've been able to package, market, and sell some of these life coaching principles. Because I think a lot of people like myself, we get a yoga teacher certification. We get the life coaching certification. We know how to ask really good questions and set smart goals, but we have no idea how to get clients to do that with. So I'm curious if we can kind of rewind to the beginning of, I'm going to be a life coach. I need to make this transition out of corporate to starting to put some of the business pieces together.
Okay.
So a succinct question for you is, number one, how did you leave your corporate job? Was it that day you resigned, or what was your transition out of your corporate job?
Okay. Yeah. So just to circle back for a second, you said that you couldn't. There are people who hear that calling and who start to feel the awakening of their sleeping giant, who then choose to ignore it and continue down the path that they're on. So I just want to call attention to that, because there are people who do that and they grapple with themselves for decades sometimes, so I just wanted to plug for anyone who's watching or listening that if you feel that sleeping giant coming awake, respond to it, because it's not going to go away and it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So I just wanted to add that in. So for me, I had become certified as a coach. What I was doing is running a coaching business parallel with my corporate role. And then again, because when you start to answer the call, things start opening up to you and more opportunities start to present themselves to you and more possibility. So I was running a really successful coaching business out of my basement and in the park, during the evenings and on the weekends. And I got to the point where I was going to switch to, I was ready to look for another job, another corporate gig. And I decided that what I was going to do instead was consult for a little bit so that I can give myself some time to understand the business end of coaching. And so that I could also make sure that I had, some of the financial support to do it. And so then I just really started to look at other coaches, look at successful coaches to see what they were doing. And at the time, social media wasn't as big of a part of that because the social media, the internet hadn't quite formed to where they are today. But it really was about starting that conversation and getting as many clients as I could and talking with them about what their needs were and what was missing for them.
Yeah.
And then taking that information and putting it into the next program, the next workshop, the next offering that I had. Sometimes coaches, specifically coaches, I think sometimes unfortunately we get into our own heads where we're like, what can I do to save the world? And quite frankly, the world will tell you.
Yes.
The world that you have will tell you what you need, what they're looking for. And it's just a matter of being flexible enough and creative enough to meet them there.
You're so
where they are.
Cool, calm, and collected about this. I have told listeners this so many times that my biggest regret about starting a business was not just hitting the sidewalk and getting into real conversation. And I've come to learn over the years that these old school marketing practices like knocking on your neighbor's door and asking for referrals and having coffee dates, whether they're virtual or in person, is really the way to learn what people need. We like to think, I liked to think that journaling and mini courses and hashtag research was going to tell me how to present myself online. And it couldn't have been further from the truth. So I love the call to action that you're providing, which is get into conversations, take on clients, and use real people, real conversations as your market research to build your offers and learn how to connect with them, right?
Absolutely. And I'd add to that what's really important is to also know who you're talking to. One of the things that I loved about our offline conversation was you're really clear about who you're talking to, who you're serving. And what can happen is if you're not clear about who you're talking to everybody and you're talking to really nobody. So for me, what I really love, the conversations I love to have are conversations around family legacy and generational patterns and behaviors, because I believe that one, focus on strengthening and getting into awesome rapport with yourself, getting into having a fabulous love relationship with yourself is key to the quality of your life. And then secondly, doing that, understanding that we're part of a tribe, and the work that we do on ourselves is not just so that we can go sit home, and be woo-woo by ourselves. It really is about being able to influence in a positive way the communities around us. But let's stop with our families, because that is like a perfect playground for all of this, where you have those negative, those behavioral patterns that we all know exist within our families. If you can be that person to affect positive change for the future generations of your family, or even the Thanksgiving table, then you would have done a fantastic thing for yourself, for them, and for the community around you.
Yeah. And I think that ripple effect is what inspires a lot of coaches to start what they do. They can see how them achieving their dreams means they're going to help other people. And if they're helping other people, then they're elevating consciousness, if we want to be very woo-woo about it.
That's the woo-woo thing, right? Yeah. A better world, all the way around.
And that's what I'm here for. And I know that's what a lot of listeners are here for. I do just want to underscore what you're talking through right now, because it relates to a lot of what I do and what we help clients with. When it comes to fine-tuning your coaching offer and like how you're going to say, I elevate consciousness in a way that people will actually understand and want to work with you, are 3 C's: clarity, connection, and credibility. And you're talking about this clarity piece right now, which first came from, talking to people, understanding what they need. And then it sounds like somewhere along the way, you asked yourself the question, which of these conversations is lighting me up the most? And I think, and you maybe, kind of fine tune to go down more of that family legacy route. And I think that's really important to, like I said, note, because when you're starting out, you're going to have lots of conversations. You can experiment with lots of things, but to niche down, the question to keep asking is which conversation and clients are lighting you up the most? Because if you don't choose the ones that light you up, you just put yourself in another cubicle and you're looking out the window at, you could have been talking family relationships and you chose something else. So was that something conscious to you, or did that just kind of come from trial and error, getting that clarity?
I came out of a corporate background, and I come from a family of folks who are both creative and very business oriented, a family of entrepreneurs. And so for me, it's really important to me that people live their dreams. And so that's how I came into the work that I do. And for me, it was a matter of really sitting down and asking myself, why? Like, why? What is it why am I doing this? What is it that if I could just change one thing for this collective group of people, what would it be? And what I got back to was some experiences in my own childhood where I saw that my own mom made certain decisions that she made because the opportunities for her to stand as an entrepreneur weren't quite as prevalent as they are today. And then it took me down a path further of really thinking about, well, what's happening in family? Like, what happens in these relationships between, couples and children, and how are children impacted? And so that turns me on and lights me up. And so the more I realize that coaching, I coach business people, I coach all kinds of folks, and we always get back to that somehow or another as a coach. So if you're a coach and you find that the conversation or that point of inquiry always takes you down a path, some particular path, whether it's finances or whatever it is, start there, because it's almost like your unconscious is kind of sending you into the thing that you're really most, interested in talking about.
That's golden. That's absolutely golden to take note of those things that keep coming up. I always ask my clients, like, what are you sick of saying? What do you keep repeating yourself on? What have you told every client? Okay, great. That's going to be a pillar of your program.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And from the business aspect, if you don't mind me adding to that, again, that's where those avatars come in. That's where clarity around who your target audience comes in, because it's really important. Be clear about who you're talking to, because once you're clear that you want to speak to the grocery store person, then everything kind of lines up around helping that grocery store person to be the most successful person that they can be in that role. So it's really important to have that clarity.
My conversations always come back to literally clarity, connect with them, and then, build your credibility is the things that I keep coming back to and what we've kind of built in our program. And what I'm hearing from you is something I want to maybe ruffle some feathers around, because
do it.
This isn't my world. This isn't like business and stuff, but I want to see if you agree, because I think you're hinting at this. I hear a lot of other business coaches saying, close your eyes, meditate, and call in your dream client. Make up her name, make up what nail polish she has and what her favorite 3 p.m. snack is. And they make it up. And I am totally against that. I think that is a huge waste of time. It might be fun if you're like super bored in quarantine, but I am of the school Could happen. Who knows how long this is going to go on.
Yeah.
But I am of the school of choosing someone you love to work with and continuing to speak to that real person that you actually know. And it sounds like you do the same thing.
Absolutely.
Am I right in that?
Choose the person, a good place to start. And this is something that I did, and they all know it, but I literally looked at my friends and family, and I thought, oh, I would really love to help this person with this thing.
Yeah.
And so you already have all the avatars you need. I think sometimes we get so caught up in these, we have to have an avatar, and, I have to do it the way this other famous coach does it. And, it really comes down to you coming from your heart.
Yeah.
And the way to do that is to look in your own yard at what you already have, what you need. It's really right there. And so as long as you stand in your strength, stand in your giant, and look at the people that you already have, the real people that are in your world, and start talking to them, and you'll see how things will shift, because people want to talk to people who are in their own truth.
Oh, yeah. So well said, and thanks for backing me up on that one. Let's talk a little bit. I think it's really interesting for you to be looking at your friends and family and thinking, these are the people that I want to help. And I'm curious for you what you're doing now. Let's kind of shift gears and talk about the familial legacies that you're building in the coaching side of things. What are you finding is that thing you keep coming back to right now, that root cause that you are working with your clients on?
Improving the relationship with yourself. It's actually my tag. Improving the relationship with yourself and watching how your life shines as a result of that. And so I own Hera Hub Carlsbad. I founded Shaping Freedom, which is a personal growth company. And my sister and I co-administer my brother's estate, and my brother was an artist. And so everything that I do, while it's a lot, and I also have a line of products that are coming out under the brand Shaping Sanctuary. Everything that I do is in alignment with my ultimate goal of helping people to improve showing people how they can improve the relationship that they're in with themselves. Because if you find yourself out of alignment with the work that you're doing, or if you find yourself repeating the same negative patterns in romantic relationships, or if you find yourself constantly in the rink with people in your family, the way to get down to what that's truly about is to look at the relationship that you're in with yourself. It's really easy to point fingers outside of yourself at what people do. And a lot of times people give us plenty of, ammunition for us to do that, but there's no power in that. So, instead of looking at the job that you hate, being managed by a boss that you despise, what's really helpful is to look at, wow, why am I sitting in a job that I don't like? What's happening within me that makes me willing to show up to work every day for 50, 60 hours, doing something that I don't love? Why am I sitting in a relationship with someone who crosses my boundaries? What do I need to do? So it's really about cleaning up the relationship you're in with yourself. Because once you do that, things will respond. You'll find different things will start coming your way. And it's not easy. It's simple, but not easy at all. But it really is a wonderful inquiry to take yourself through so that you can live authentically.
And it is one of the hardest lessons to learn and to work through, right? Like you said, it's simple, but it's easy to put into practice all the time, that you can literally only control you. And waiting
That's
for
it.
People. This is a great example. This month, this is my first live from Mexico. Just this month, we moved to Mexico. I grew up.
Yay. Congratulations.
Thank you. I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin, and one of the things that I was accepting and complaining about and blaming was the weather, especially this time of year. The weather makes me mad. I hate snow. I'm not my best self, blah, blah, blah. And then a few years ago, I started to realize this like personal responsibility thing, and that I wasn't a tree. I could literally get up and move out of the snow. And I think that's that's not a business example, but it's one of those reflections for me that I come back to. It's like, okay, if I'm complaining about whatever, like I got out of the snow, I can get out of this. And it's not going to be anyone else that I have to rely on or the easterly winds. It's just my decision.
Absolutely. I didn't know that about you. I'm actually in San Diego right now, and I'm originally from the East Coast. I'm from Brooklyn. And so I grew up in the Northeast with the frigid weather and the inches and inches of snow and all that good stuff. And I moved here to San Diego 9 years ago because I'd always wanted to live around mountains and the ocean. And so one day I had probably a similar conversation with myself where I just like, I want to live by the mountains and the ocean. So why don't I just do that? So I moved out here, and then some things happened in my life where I had to work on that business back in the Northeast. And so now I'm bi-coastal. And so I'm bi-coastal. My family didn't think that I would that I would stay here. They thought I'd come back. And for me, there was this moment of honoring what I knew I really wanted and also meeting the responsibilities and what I needed to take care of back in the Northeast. So, there's always a way for things to work out. And I would just add to what you said, that the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. And so, yes, that was a personal example. But that is an example of how you live your life, personally or professionally.
Yeah, no, I so appreciate that. That's really resonating with me on like a soul level today, because even making bold decisions and moving yourself or, taking ownership, it doesn't mean that there aren't other inputs, other voices, other expectations that I still sense and am navigating right now in real time. So thank you.
I hear you.
For that sentiment. Yeah.
I had friends who were pissed off with me. They had no reason to be, but they were totally pissed off with me. And I would call them and say hi, and they'd say, "Oh, what? I bet it's 70 degrees out." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I just called to say hello."
Yeah.
So
maybe we need to have another like bi-coastal interview, because I think there's a lot to unpack there.
We should. That'd be great. But that's, and then after a while, those same folks came back and they're just like, "I was just hating on what you did. And I love that you had the balls to do it. And I just couldn't deal, at the time." So it all kind of evens out.
Yeah. My sister-in-law was the first one to say like, everyone's just really jealous. Right. And it's like, I'm still thinking about how to grapple with that, or what my, response is, because they don't care that it's beautiful all of the time. And I would love to share that. So it's definitely a journey, I think.
Yeah. I think it's also just, sometimes getting off the ramp can be scary for people. And I think that that's what keeps a lot of people stuck in either the cubicle or the relationship or the life, whatever that looks like.
No.
It can keep people stuck because because they're afraid of what the consequences might be to their lives, so it's easy or it's one thing to dream, to stare out of the cubicle window or office window and dream about what you could possibly do. And it's another to actually take action and head down that path that has some uncertainty to it, but the thing is, you live, you're here, you might as well live. And that's about as woo-woo as a person can get, live.
Might as well just make your dream life your real life.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I'm saying, Hannah. That is exactly what I'm saying.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. I it's always nice when that just kind of fits in. And I felt like that's where you were going.
Yes,
so with this, role modeling, and I really see you as being that role model of finding your giant, knowing it's there, and then answering the call to wake it up and to move forward and to be on this journey for years, right? And have that stick with itness. So I would love to know where listeners can continue this conversation with you and even learn how to work with you to really own their shine, like you said.
Absolutely.
Where can they stay connected?
Yeah. So Shaping Freedom is the personal growth company that I founded, and I do virtual workshops. Go to the shapingfreedom.com website. You can also follow me under either Lisane Basquiat or Shaping Freedom on Instagram. And I'm on Facebook and I'm on LinkedIn. So just look up either Lisane Basquiat.
When we have all our vaccines or whatever, they can stop by in real life if they're in San Diego, right?
Absolutely. And so Hera Hub Carlsbad is in San Diego. There are actually 3 Hera Hubs in San Diego, one in Mission Valley, one in Sorrento Valley, and the one in Carlsbad, which is the one that I own. So if you are an entrepreneur who's looking for some support, community, Hera Hub, join us, follow us. And if you are looking to improve the quality of your family legacy by cutting some of those negative behavioral patterns and beliefs and thoughts, then please do follow me on any of the social media platforms. Lisane Basquiat, Basquiat.
We will make sure that we have the correct spelling. I have the phonetic spelling.
Hopefully you'll do better at spelling my name than I just did.
We will definitely make sure we have all the correct links so that listeners can continue this conversation and stay connected with you.
Thank you. I just want to mention also, I have, really quick, I have a private Facebook group called Shaping Freedom on Facebook as well. And that's where a lot of the conversations take place as well.
We love those. Amazing. Thank you so much. And listeners, I'll be back next week with another inspiring guest that will keep helping you make your dream life your real life. That's right, friends. That'll do it for our show today. But remember, if you're really ready to implement and take these ideas into action, then hop on over to dreamlifeisreallife.com/show, and you can access all of the resources we talked about, and more importantly, set up a complimentary 10-minute phone call with my team so that we can help you get clarity and some concrete action steps in place. So this doesn't just become another one of those feel-good moments, but an opportunity to actually make a change in your life and business, because all good things come in action. So we'll see you over there at dreamlifeisreallife.com/show and next week here on the show.